as we saw, there's a lot of frustration, but there's also a lot of frustration because of other reasons. Because these days in the World Championship, as many winners, there are even more losers. And let's say, well, maybe we should say not winners, because we saw something very interesting during the weekend. And maybe because it was a story, not everybody saw it, but if you're following other sports, it's everywhere now. It's an NBA player that was asked if his season was a waste of time, let's say. And we're talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. I tried to say it correctly. I hope I did. And he was asked by a journalist during a press conference if the Cubs season was a waste of time. And he said, and he gave an interesting thought about it, how not succeeding all the time, it doesn't have to be a failure. It's not a failure, because not everybody can be a winner, let's say. He said it in other words. Everybody saw it. Everybody has seen that. And I actually saw it for the first time because Fabio Quartararo shared it. And I found it, as a journalist, first of all, humbling a little bit, because I took it in. I watched it. I watched it a few times, and then I thought about what Fabio must be feeling now. And he's not the only one now in the MotoGP paddock who must be feeling a little bit in the same way.
Yep, we can say frustrated, absolutely. And maybe, I wouldn't say losers, but riders in difficulties for sure, because of the bike. Yeah, mostly I think because of the bike, or because just not finding that perfect combination, that perfect feeling, what you really, really need. Again, I know I said it a lot of times, sorry, I keep repeating, the races are really, really close. The whole field are compact. They are basically, the whole field is within 1 second. That's insane. So, and sometimes we just see the position, we just have a look on the position, but not the time difference, because then the time difference is so tiny, tiny, tiny. Yes, we can mention here Fabio Quartararo, because for sure there's a reason he shared this video. But then we had Jean Mir, who was really, really down this weekend. I have to admit, I was quite surprised. I can understand why, yet I was quite surprised. Franco Morbidelli, clearly he's suffering for a while. And then we will talk about a little bit Maverick Vinales here, who is, let's say, also not in the best position that maybe wanna be, but he's not suffering, or the frustration there is different, I think, than with the other three riders.
Because every time we get to a weekend, it's like it's a new chapter. They open a new page, they open a new chapter, and they come there with big hopes. We get, every time before we get to a weekend, we get the email from the team. Oh, big expectation, they're planning to go. We can find it. We see it repetitively. Some of them, it's more believable. Some of them is to pump themselves up. But some of them really, like Fabio, he came after last year being on the podium. There were really big hopes. The Aprilia guys also came with big hopes. And then things change and they are not seen as they want them to be, or as they were hoping to be, because they also have to play their mind game with themselves to keep convincing themselves that they are able to do what they are getting to do on the track. And we keep seeing Maverick, and we'll keep waiting for that thing to happen. And he has issues. Let's just remind everybody that he has the carbon clutch, and that's a little bit more difficult for him to get used to. He has some issues with the starts of the races. We saw him lose a lot of positions, and he's been working on it. And you've seen him, and he has been working on it quite a lot.
Yeah, the start can be a different, complete topic, but I won't go in details. But for sure, we saw a lot of practice start from Maverick Vinales during the weekend. And then just really quick thought that starts became so important, thanks to the KTM guys, by the way, and their perfect launches, that on Monday during the test, I never ever seen this many practice starts that we could experience there from the morning till the last minute. Both of the Aprilia guys, so it's not just Maverick Vinales who's suffering now or has difficulties or issues with the start, but Aleix Espargaro as well. I saw a couple of bad start practice from him as well on Monday. And then, for example, also Marco Bezzecchi, I think he did at least 30 or 50, so really a lot of practice starts. But this weekend, I didn't check both the sprint and the Sunday race, but for sure Maverick improved, because I think he didn't lose this time. He didn't lose position with the start, but the start is not just whether it's carbon or not. It's more complicated. It's also the rider's hand, but it's also a mechanical thing with the clutch itself. And then another really important part comes in, the electronics. So
this is on top of something, because Maverick had always an issue with the starts. We always had him having issues with the full tank, with the, now this season it's not the same because Moto2 is not in different hours, so that part we put to the side. But the thing was that his attitude is different. Maybe the starts are not still as he wants them to be, but the attitude, he did manage to work on it. It's not the same Maverick that we used to see 2 years ago when he got frustrated and something didn't work. He had issues with that. He couldn't channel his frustration in a better way. But now we see a Maverick that is not getting pissed off. He's not losing his temper. He's also not with these highs and lows. He's trying at least to keep most of the things on the same level. And that's something that is interesting to see.
Which doesn't mean that he doesn't want, that he doesn't try, that he doesn't work on it. So don't mix things. Don't mix the things, please. Don't forget. Yes, his reaction is to outside, I would say. For us, maybe it's different, but don't forget, he became married, he became father. Soon he will be father the second time. So things has changed around him. I think he found kind of a inner peace or peace in inner peace as well, and around him. Clearly, we can see these changes also during the race weekends, like not getting frustrated. Also, what this one thing that I think is still there, it's kind of a sadness, which I can understand. It's also coming from the frustration. He said when the result is not what he would like to, he is not smiling the way that normally he does, you know. But again, it doesn't mean he doesn't want it.
Yeah, we're mentioning it because we heard some criticism about the fact that he's not getting angry or upset or shows more his passion to win, but we can see it with the hard work that he's doing, because he's working hard. Things sometimes take time to click, but we also saw that different kind of method with Fabio a few years ago, because Fabio also pushed himself to grow up. He said it himself, to be able to stay relaxed, not to lose his temper, so he can analyze everything better, take it in better, but mainly share his thoughts better with his team, with his crew, with his people, so they can do their job. Because if they get pissed off and they lose their temper, they get lost. Same thing we can say even about Pecco. What we saw this last weekend was thanks also to Pecco not getting nervous or losing his concentration because things didn't work out on Friday. He was able to calm down, to analyze what was going on, to feel what's not working, and to pinpoint. Paolo Gibati actually shared that he was able to pinpoint exactly what was wrong in 2 specific corners, so his team could help him and find the perfect setting to give him the bike. That took him to the second place and then to the win.
The confidence and the concentration we could also understand when he had this drop position, this penalty, because the worst thing that a rider can do in such a situation is getting angry, getting frustrated, and lose the concentration. So he said, okay, I loved about the penalty, but then he really could keep the focus, let Jack go, and then just do the job again. So, and also one interesting thing that Valentino Rossi, who was there, by the way, Saturday and Sunday, and clearly helped all his riders, he said an interesting thing that maybe the difficulties on Friday helped to Pecco this time, because what we could see from him till now, that or he had a bad weekend from the beginning till the end, or he immediately started perfectly and then the whole weekend was on first. But this was, I think, the first time, more or less, that after a difficulty on Friday, as you explained, he could find a solution.
We saw a glimpse of that at the end of last season with Sepang. We saw a little bit, but he couldn't take it to the win. Exactly. It wasn't like exactly like this. And this where we saw the growth, because we also, this was maybe the first weekend that we saw him in a gap. There was a gap between him, a big gap, and the rest of the Ducati riders. It wasn't like 6 Ducati riders in the top 8. It was Pecco more dominant than the rest of the Ducati riders, and that showed, we mentioned it before and we can mention it again, it proved that this was thanks to Pecco and his crew, and a little bit less thanks to the smooth.
I completely agree. And what you mentioned earlier, that normally the riders start all the weekends fresh and with a lot of positivity. I saw an exception this weekend, Joan Mir, who already on Thursday afternoon said, it's just not working. I'm not there. I cannot do anything. Whenever I try, I crash. So, and that's why I was quite surprised, because this frustration came out immediately on Thursday afternoon. And then he had 5 crashes during the weekend and the test, which is really not something that we saw from Joan Mir in the past. So I'm curious to see how he can, and how he can go through this and find the positivity to fight.
In a way, it felt a little bit that he was trying to find the positivity, because when I listened to his words, he was trying to say that it took him also time to get adjusted to Suzuki. It feels like he is trying to calm himself down and not to get stressed, because he was still trying to say that he still expected it to be difficult. He is trying to find the way to keep himself more relaxed, though he has seen, like us in the last few years, how the Honda, took the mojo away from the riders to join them. And every rider is hoping when they join them that he's going to do it differently, that he's capable to do it differently. But then they get some kind of a shock, because they find the RC 213V a little bit more difficult than they expected it to be, or they thought they were better in that way. We also saw the frustration actually coming from Alex Rins. Maybe we know it was last time we were in Jerez, they were fine until the announcement came immediately after the Jerez race, which was just a reminder. I think today, the day we are recording, is exactly a year to the date where the news broke out that Suzuki are pulling away. So it sounds very frustrating actually to listen to them, because you really want them to be happy. Most of them, I think all of them, are really nice guys, lovely guys. Each one has his own personality and his own thing going on, but you want them to be happy, you want them to succeed, but not everybody can be a winner. That's why I said before, maybe to say that they are losers is the wrong way to use it, but they are just not the winners.
Exactly, and we have one more rider to mention here, definitely Franco Morbidelli. And he's really an analytical guy, so guys who really go deep into the details, not just with motorsport and with riding, but I think with everything. We had a really nice conversation with him during media debriefs, basically ending on stories and the different topics with about life and positivity and energy and really a lot of things. So, and he also again Instagram, he shared a picture, I think that was a picture about or maybe a video, I'm not sure, about Ayrton Senna. And on Sunday he told us basically that he shared this story about Ayrton because he was really upset after the penalty, and everything happened to him on Saturday. And for him, Ayrton Senna is the idol.
He's half Brazilian, so
exactly, and he had the poster in his room. So really, Ayrton is an idol. But as he said, for him, Ayrton is the essence of a driver and or rider. So and he's a real example, not just drivers, but also to any athlete. And basically, he wanted to find some energy thinking of him, because all the difficulties that Ayrton went through, like, you know, politics around the sport that time, and how elegantly he handled that situation and managed to become stronger. This is what he explained. I mean, Frankie. So he thought immediately on Ayrton Senna after everything happened to him on Saturday. It was quite touching for me, and also made me think.
Yeah, but let's not hide this. He was very, very angry during the debrief. He was punching the table a little bit, like it's not I don't know how to say it properly in English, but you know, you heard the boom. And he was upset. He was angry because it is frustrating, the whole thing. The situation is difficult anyway. With Yamaha, with him, we keep hearing the talks about the future of Frankie. The decision is coming. We keep hearing the other names that are in the running. We also the Tuprak test that we understand that Tuprak is not in the running anymore. Frankie knows it. He hears it. He knows that people, his bosses, are talking to his manager and mentor to try to figure out, and it feels like, you know, even when I hear that, he's a grown man, Frankie, and to hear that your boss is talking to your other boss above you to try to help you, it sounds so strange in a way, and a little bit uncomfortable. And Frankie is a grown man. He had to grow up really quickly. We know he's very independent. We know he has a lot. His mind. As you mentioned, he has a very unique way of thinking, and that must play with his mind as well.
Yes, between all the riders we mentioned in this part, I feel it's Frankie, the one who is more lost. Sorry, I cannot find a better way. Maybe my English is poor here. And I'm wondering how he can again find some answers, because I think that's the most frustrating thing, by the way.
Yeah.
And you cannot find the answer. But there was another thing that Fabio Quartararo mentioned. And normally, as you also, I think you mentioned that normally he's nowadays, not a couple of years ago, but now
let's remember, he just turned 24. You know, he was very young when
he's still
couldn't control everything. He's still young. 24 is young.
Yeah. So, but more and more he's talking about his frustration and how upset he is with Yamaha. Also this weekend he mentioned that, and if there is a person or group of people lacking the enthusiasm, or the reactions we are missing that you mentioned with VInales. I think Maverick is not the correct name to mention, but the Yamaha team, at least according to Fabio. So he's basically missing the anger from his team, and he doesn't know what's going on.
What he means by the anger, he's missing the drive that they will do something, because they are not, he looks at it and he thinks that they are not getting upset enough to do the work. Again, you don't have to look upset, you just have to do the work because you don't want to keep losing. We actually heard Valentino say the same thing. Valentino just was appointed the ambassador for Yamaha. He was immediately asked, are you going to change manufacturer for the Mooney VR46? And he said at the same time, we are not going to do that unless Yamaha approve it. We also heard Frankie explain his frustration, because he said that finally he can say, because people kept saying that he lost his ability to ride because of his knee, because of the way he was thinking, and it's not him. He actually said that it's not him. It's the bike. He came back to a different bike and it's just not working.
Maybe there's one more factor before we move on, that for Frankie, it can be even more difficult, because clearly he can see the results and the lap times of Fabio. So, and except Argentina, he's much behind. So maybe he feels also that I'm not in the position to complain, or to complain too much, because I'm not close enough to Fabio to do this. I'm not saying this is correct, but this can be a feeling.
But there are a few riders in the VR46 Academy that sometimes you can feel that they are very appreciative of where they are, but sometimes maybe too appreciative of where they are, so they are not demanding too much. We hear that sometimes from the riders. So to sum that up, riders can be frustrated. It doesn't have to show in anger. It actually has to be the other way around. We talked about it, we mentioned it before, you have to be happy to ride. You have to find a positivity. And that's actually going to lead us to our next segment.
Which is?
KTM.
There have been a lot of positive energy there, I would say, during the weekend. I mean, what Dani Pedrosa did, that was something incredible.
What all of them did, because if we look at the papers before we came to Jerez, the best place that a KTM rider ended in Jerez was 6th.
Yes.
That was the best result. And all of a sudden, we get Dani, we get Jack, and we get Brad, and they are so impressive. It's hard to even a little bit find the words, because it was, in a way, surprising, but at the same time, not surprising.
Yeah, well, normally we say that once we arrive to Jerez, we will understand more, the real potential of the bikes, the real potential of the riders, and we can learn more about the result. Let's see whether this still stands for this year, because of the lot of time mentioned reason how close everything is. But if KTM can prove themselves Le Mans, Mugello, then I will also believe in this. But again, what they did in Jerez was really awesome. I think that Dani Pedrosa being there was also a driving force for the other. Yes, a really huge motivation. Moreover, after he won the practice one and then finished third on Friday with the combined timing. So I think that was a huge motivation for Brad Binder and for Jack Miller as well. And
yeah, it was. Let's talk a little bit about Dani, because first of all, I love Dani. I know you love Dani. We both had personal interviews with him quite a few times. We spoke to him quite a few times, and he's a lot more relaxed and more approachable than he was when he was riding. Things changed for him. But to see also the reception that he got was something very unique. To see the reception from the crowd there was a lot of crowd in Jerez. To see them shout his name, to see the reaction of the riders. We heard him say how emotional he got just from the reaction from the fans, but also how accepted he was by the other riders from all the different manufacturers. And you actually shared a picture that you took that I really loved, because we know when the other teams and the other members in the paddock, when they are cheering for you and you are not in their team, that's special. And there's a picture that you shared that we are showing now. Let's say it's showing now on the screen. Yep. And we will share it in the comments in the audio version. And you can see him coming into the pit lane, and you were standing there. Why did you decide to stand there and take that specific photo of him coming in and getting all these cheers from the Mark VDS guys and the other people in the paddock?
As a lot of time, I needed some luck as well. And this time the luck was that the Parferme was just next to the KTM pit boxes. So after races, I go to the Parferme taking pictures. But then clearly it was really good because the KTM boxes were there, also Dani's one. And not just for him, because also Sam Lowes was there because they were waiting for Jack Miller to coming. So I could take similar pictures about a couple of riders. Maybe this was also kind of a Jerez vibe, that everyone was so and also it was a good race. Don't forget to mention it, that it was a really, really good race on Sunday. So yeah, basically the whole Moto2 and Moto3 and a couple of the MotoGP. Well, no, I think it was more Moto2 and Moto3, because from that direction, the KTM pit boxes were the four first MotoGP boxes. So they came out and applauding and celebrating the riders. And then I wanted to wait for Dani. So a little bit it was luck again because of where they were placed. But again, I was waiting. We had already riders in the Parferme. I took a couple of pictures, but then I turned back, because what we could see from the fans on Sunday in the TV when they did the parade, it was not the first moment for Dani, because from Thursday, basically on Thursday afternoon, there is already a pit lane walk for the fans, and already Thursday you could hear a lot of people waiting in front of his pit box and shouting his name and waiting for him and begging for him to come out. So basically it was a 4 days of experience like this for Dani, with a lot of autographs. After Friday first practice, a lot of people just waited for him to come out at the other end of the pit box, so from the paddock side, waiting for autographs. So we really get a lot of positive feedback, and people love Dani Pedrosa. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to love him. He's very except from, okay, let's put aside, he is a MotoGP legend. He's an extremely good rider. 2 world titles, The most wins without a MotoGP title. 3 wins in MotoGP in Jerez. And he gave us so many fights. And also when he made mistakes, he was so genuine in how he responded to these mistakes. Like, nobody can forget how he responded to Nicky Hayden in 2006 and how apologetic he was and what he did afterwards. So it was always very easy to feel connected to him, for the fans and for all the other people around. But what he did and what he does for KTM is truly, truly remarkable. The work he's doing as a test rider for KTM is really impressive, and all the riders are genuinely thanking him. And we could hear each one of them really say beautiful things about him, his ability, and the work that he's doing. And we can also sometimes even sense slight jealousy from other riders from different manufacturers that they don't have Danny in their team, even though they all have great test riders.
Yes, but as we know, Honda had a really, really good chance to have him as a test rider, but they chose a different path. But a lot of this is how it is. But a lot of riders mentioned that how talented he was and still is. Don't forget, he won a 125 World Championship and then 2 times 250 titles, and he had a disadvantage because of his small size. So he's huge rider, but he's a really small rider.
He had a lot of injuries.
Crashes and injuries. This is what I wanted to add. Immense. I did a collage about it, and I think I ended like 6 pages or something. So it's really incredible. And yet, at age of 37, he is still fast. But yes, just to be correct, politically correct, Jerez is the test track of KTM. So Danny himself, he rides a lot here. He loves this track. He has a special feeling and vibe with this track.
So he also during the test didn't take the test only as a test. He really prepared for the race. He did time attack. He did all the extra preparation, because when they do tests, sometimes they don't try the new tires. They don't try everything. They don't do the time attack. They don't prepare for the race weekend. They do a test job.
Most of the time, because this is what he said on Thursday, that he really, really interesting to see his own results, because finally he will have new tires, couple of new tires, because normally during a whole test, they have, I think, 4 set of tires. So it's really most of the time they ride on used tires. But this is completely the opposite during a race weekend. And this was the first time ever that he could do a 36 lap time, 36.7 on Friday. So he was really, really fast. But I'm not sure whether it was Alex Rins or Aleix Espargaro mentioning that they knew that if he accepted to do a white card, that was because he had the speed. He is not coming back to do last.
So apart from Danny, we need to give credit to a few more people at KTM. First of all, of course, the big bosses and everything. But then we have to mention Francesco Guidotti, the person that was brought in to lift the spirits up. We know there was the environment in KTM. It wasn't that good. It wasn't that friendly. Leitner is a very talented human. He's a very talented technician. He's a very talented team manager, but it was a little bit too harsh, maybe, let's say, gently. And they brought in Francesco Guidotti, who we know is a people's person. We know how he works, and KTM knew how it works. And he came in and he did something very unique already there. It took him a little bit because it takes time without breaking the system. And he also brought in the guy who he used to work with. And we know he has something special, the charisma and the talent of Jack Miller, wherever he is. And it doesn't matter what happens, He's there and he's managing to lift the spirits up. He's managing to stay positive. He's managing to pull everybody together for a cause. And that's a gift.
Yeah, that's a gift. And we can understand it that after 4 years, I think, at the same team with Pecco Bagnaia, the relationship is, I think that's 4 years, right?
Yeah, twice, 2 years with Pramac and 2 years with
so the relationship is still really good. Yeah, okay, yeah, they have this little fight during the Spanish GP. Pecco said sorry. Jack said something really bad. I wouldn't repeat what he could say, or he said, I think
we all know
in the helmet, but we all know. By the way, I forgot to mention it when we talking about the penalties, that Jack said that he wouldn't have been upset even if Pecco didn't get any penalty. Just to mention it. So yeah, his character is really strong. And then he found another old good friend, basically, in the KTM pit box, Brad Binder. They have a really, really good relationship.
Yeah, they have the same. He also mentioned in the past they have the same humor. He's South African, he's Australian. Both of them are far away from home, so they make up their own families in Andorra, and they're very close there. And they practice together, they train together. We could see how their spouses also get along pretty well. They have their own vibe and family kind of feeling.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to add. It was really nice to see Ruby and Courtney coming out from a pit box together. I'm not sure, but I think it was Saturday. But they came together, they celebrated together their men. It was really, really, really a nice moment. But don't forget, you mentioned Guidotti, but there are a couple of other people. One already arrived before him, Fabio Sterlachini, who already started to add a couple of things to the technical side. And then Pigiamino, ex-crew chief of Andrea Dovizioso, and then for 1 year for Enea Bastianini, he also arrived. So the Italian vibe is arriving also to KTM to maybe ease a little bit.
Well, actually, there were also quite a few Italians even before Francesco Guidotti joined. But, you know, it's also the same thing as Gigi says all the time. You just need to be able to get out all the smartness of all the people around. There are good people everywhere. You just need to be able to manage the human side of things. And not everybody can bring that positivity out of people. So you have that extra push that you get now with this is at least how I see it, with these two personalities that are big and influential, but very team players. Because I don't think there's anybody in the paddock who's a bigger team player than Jack Miller.
I think so. Yeah, I completely agree. And this is important.
No wonder, by the way, that he's the taxi man. The reason he's the taxi man, because he sees the people in trouble. It's not like he's the only rider on track when somebody gets stuck.
Yes. And this is really important if you want to sell, let's say, your team or sell your brand also to young talents and want them to join to your team. And just remember back, it was not a long time ago, 2 years ago, when I don't want to say no one wanted to race with with KTM, but we know riders, Raul Fernandez, he didn't want to race there.
It was, and 2 months ago, it didn't look too tempting. Okay?
Yeah.
2 months ago, it didn't look too tempting.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to say that things can change really, really quickly. One part is the personal part. Clearly, of course, we are talking about motorsport, we are talking about racing. So then the technical part also come into the picture. And one thing, important thing, that we could see an updated aero package already on Dani Pedrosa's bike during the weekend, and then all the other riders, not just the KTM riders, but the gas riders, Augusto Fernandez for sure. I'm not sure about Folger, but he has a lot to learn now. But Augusto Fernandez also tried that aero package, and this aero package is the first result of the collaboration with the Red Bull technology. I forgot to check the name correctly before we record this. Sorry. So basically, the Formula One help that now the KTM gets, and that was the first result. There was already a small update during the test on Monday. So these elements are really important if you want to attract your bike to young talents. And of course, there's a reason I mention it.
Yeah, well, results in this and potential, because riders needs to see the potential of what they can do. And we are getting now the hints that, Acosta was convinced. Acosta is convinced, and Acosta we saw the problem that KTM had with Raul Fernandez. He didn't want to go to KTM. They tried to
Force him.
Yeah, convince him hardly.
Force him
to join them with legal things, and then they know that's not the way. They learn from the mistakes, and they know it's not the way. And with these results, Acosta also gives hints during the weekend that he's convinced. So we are expecting to see him in some kind of level. We don't know yet how, because there are contracts for Jack and for Brinder until the end of 24. We know there's a contract that is still active until the end of 24 for Paul. The only rider that doesn't have a long-term contract is Augusto Fernandez. And so there's a big question there coming, and we know that they don't want to lose Acosta. So we will have to see how they sort that out, because, and when we also mentioned Paul, we just got today, we're recording this on, today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
We just today we saw, I know that it made your heart feel warmer and nicer to see Paul talking and smiling after everything he's been going through. And we heard from Paul that he's on the mend, he's working on himself, he could finally talk and smile, and we are waiting to see what will happen with him and what the decisions will be. Though I won't be surprised how eager he is if there will be maybe a change by the end of the year to see what his future will bring, because this was a very, very hard injury. This was a very difficult injury.
Yeah, this was a really hard injury, and as he explained in this video today, that first of all, finally he can start to speak and start to eat solid food, because so far it was not allowed to do for him.
It couldn't. It was locked. The jaw was split into two.
Yes, so, and this is a normal procedure, let's say after a jaw surgery, or if you break your jaw. But and clearly he lost weight, he lost the muscles, and so there's a lot of work to do. But one of the issues is still the back injury and the vertebra, so it really needed to be completely healed and not taking any risks. Just remember back to Jorge Lorenzo, there was a reason he decided to stop racing. So let's wait and see when Paul can come back and then what he can do. But he is a real fighter, fighter. So I think that at the end of the season, or second part, or last third, or however we want to call it, hopefully he can be strong and he can continue if he wants. Clearly that's his decision and the people's decision around him.
Yeah, well, we understood from Tech Squad that Harvey suggested that he really wants him back, and he's looking forward for him to come back. At the same time, we are hearing, because of all of this talk and about Acosta and everything, we did hear some kind of rumors already, and we know that there's some basis to that rumor that there might be a world champion, 8 times world champion, that was thinking of maybe going to that team manufacturer. And because of this, there is not going to be any space there, and there's not going to be any place for him there. So that's also a very interesting thing to look into in the future.
Honestly, but these are topics and gossips and speculations. But this 8-time world champion, I could imagine more on Aprilia. And yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, he won a title on Derby, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, he could finish his career more or less where he started. But again, let's wait and see, because maybe also Honda can find their mojo.
Well, you know, the people who have wings, they like him, they love him, they invested a lot in him, so they might be that person. But that's something that we will see evolve in the future. Let's wait first for him to come back. And let's see when he comes back and he keeps on going. And we need to thank again Dr. Boaz Granot, who was spot on everything he told us. Even though he doesn't see the riders themselves, he was spot on everything. If you missed that episode, go back to watch it.